Welcome to episode 10 of Retire Eyes Wide Open. I'm Scot Landborg. On today's episode, kids, money, and your legacy. Do you talk to your kids about money? Do you plan on leaving them anything, or do you want to bounce your last check? We'll talk about multi-generational wealth in this episode. We'll review the week's news and the money rundown. We'll talk about the best thing I saw this week. And our Scott Strategy segment and listener questions are all about kids and grandkids, and if you're going to leave them anything, this is Retire Eyes Wide Open. Welcome to Retire Eyes Wide Open. Don't go into retirement with your eyes closed. Go into it with your eyes wide open. If your financial advisor and tax advisor aren't talking, someone isn't doing their job. There are two systems in this country, one for the informed and one for the uninformed. You can't turn back the clock. You can only get better for the future. You're going to look back at this moment 20 years from now, and you want to know you did everything you could to position your financial life. The world is changing, and so is retirement. Hi, my name is Scot Landborg, and I'm here to help you retire with your eyes wide open. That means having the information you need and the clarity you deserve. It means understanding and interpreting the world as it changes. It means knowing about investments, taxes, Social Security and estate planning, and how they're all connected. And probably most important, it's about living your best retirement life, the good life. You know, I meet with thousands of retirees. I see people doing it right. I see people doing it wrong. And I'm going to show you how to retire with your eyes wide open.
The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it is in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Scot Landborg is an investment advisor representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corp., member FINRA, and SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Sterling Wealth Partners is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities.
And now for the money monologue. Kids and money. It's a topic for most every first financial planning meeting that I have with people. How many kids do you have? How important is leaving something to them? I met with some missionaries recently who you normally would think would be giving people. No, they don't want to leave their kids anything. They're not planning on leaving the church anything either. They want to bounce their last check. They want to enjoy their money during their lifetime. They feel like they've given enough to their kids and even their church, years and years and years of work and sacrifice, and now they feel like it's their turn to enjoy. And they're not alone. I meet with many people that fit this profile. They come in with an aggressive position. I want to spend every last dollar. This is very common with people with no kids. They want to maximize every dollar while they're alive, but it's more common than you think among retirees with kids. Now, there's a second group that I meet with, a very different group, and they're focused on legacy. They might have millions in retirement savings, a home, a pension. They know they don't need the money. They know they're not going to spend the money. They may only spend $5,000 a month, and their pensions or Social Security cover it. So what do they do with their investments? These two groups are playing very different games in their retirement. For the group that's about legacy, it's important for them to leave something. They want to leave a lot. And often they want to start early. They don't want to wait until after life to give to their kids and grandkids. They want to use their assets now to support the goals of their family and to set up their kids and grandkids for success. Two very different approaches, and both feel very strongly about their positions. Both have their own set of challenges, and we're going to cover them more in detail in today's episode. First, the ones that plan on bouncing their last check. What are their most important considerations? You know, it's a tricky thing to spend all your money. It is. I often wish people good luck because it's not an easy thing to do. You don't know how long you're going to live, and you don't have perfect clarity on your expenses moving forward. If you want to spend it all, if you want to spend your last nickel, here are my top tips. 1, consider income annuities for part of your plan. Now, the criticism for income annuities is that likely there's not going to be much left at the end. But remember, you don't care about that. You don't care about leaving anybody anything. You care about having enough income. And having an income annuity be part of your plan can help make sure that you'll have the income that you need for your entire life. It's one of the biggest risks of someone that wants to spend all their money is you don't want to spend it all too early. You don't want to run out. So having income annuities be part of your plan can be helpful to make sure that you don't run out of income. 2, have a long-term care policy. Again, for someone that is planning on spending all of their money, a long-term care policy could be important because as you spend down that asset, something could change 20, 30 years down the road where you need additional medical help and medical support. Having a long-term care policy in your case could be very important to make sure there's someone there to take care of you in your later years. Someone that has significant assets, someone that's spending less than they're making, someone that's leaving a legacy, they naturally have a bigger nest egg that they could pull from in an emergency. But someone that's being aggressive in their spending, living it up early in their retirement, having a long-term care policy is more important. 3, think about options for your home. For people that want to spend everything, you have this asset, your home, that most of you have either paid off or it's close to being paid off. And it's a very large asset in Southern California. Are there ways that you can optimize and maximize that asset? Because if you don't, someone's going to inherit that big house. And if you want to make sure to spend it all and maximize your income while you're living, there's options you could explore. Maybe you want to downsize to a smaller home or a lower cost community and be able to utilize that extra cash flow. Think about strategies of what to do with that home equity. 4, make sure you're managing your investment volatility. One of the biggest risks that a retiree faces is if you face a really volatile market early in your retirement, you can run out of money. And so if you're trying to live to the fullest, maximize your income while you're living, all that much more important to make sure that you manage your risk on the front end of your retirement to make sure you don't run out. 5, make sure your income needs are secure with Social Security, pension, or income riders. People that want to spend it all, I encourage you to really think through what are your annual expenses. And can your Social Security, pension, or income benefit riders from annuities, can those 3 things cover your expenses, cover your needs, cover your wants? Because if that stuff is covered through various guarantees, you can have very good security about spending down other assets. If you have your needs covered, you'll feel more comfortable doing it. 6, consider specialty annuities like rising income or front-loaded income annuities. Again, annuities often get a bad rap, but for people that don't care about leaving a lot at the end, they are definitely something you want to consider for a portion of your portfolio. Now, you have to be careful. Never put all of your money into an annuity. Don't put too much of your money into an annuity. You need to make sure you have enough liquidity. But there are specialty annuities that someone that's looking to front load their retirement, they should look at. There are some front-loaded income annuities that provide higher income early in retirement and less income later in retirement. Might be something you should consider. Also look at rising income annuities. Because again, if you have a rising income annuity and you have confidence that your income sources in retirement are going to increase, you may be more comfortable spending down your retirement assets. Number 7, still be prepared for longevity. This is the big wild card for people that want to maximize their assets while they live. You don't know how long you're going to live. And you may think you have an idea looking at your parents or grandparents, but who knows what the next innovation is around the corner. 10 years, 20 years, 25 years from now, as medical technology continues to adapt and change, be more customized to you, human longevity could dramatically increase. So you need to be a little bit careful in spending too much of your assets. You do want to have a cushion to make sure that you've planned for longevity. Later in the show, in our Scot Strategy segment, we'll be talking about legacy planning for that other group of people. What are some strategies for people that want to leave assets to their kids and grandkids and want to leave a legacy, and what you can do to maximize it? That's coming later in the show. That's it for our Money Monologue. And now for the Money Rundown. Our Money Rundown segment is where we cover the week's news. There's lots of media sources out there that are going to give you updated information about the economy and the markets. My job is to help summarize and synthesize, help pick out a few stories that are most important for you as a retiree or an investor. Story number 1, market volatility continues, with technology leading the charge downward. The NASDAQ making the biggest move downward from recent highs. Is it time to get out of technology? Market volatility is scary for a lot of people. It should be scary because it is one of the biggest dangers that you face as a retiree when you're pulling income from your accounts. You have to be concerned about volatility. You have to have a strategy for managing it. So you are rightfully concerned about volatility, and we've got a whole episode dedicated to stock market volatility. I encourage you to go to our website, retireewo.com, and download it, where we talk about strategies for managing volatility. Now, with this story about technology, is it time to get out of tech? Absolutely not. You may want to reduce your exposure in some cases if you've had too much exposure over time. Technology has really outpaced every other sector since 2008. So it may be time to reduce your exposure slightly. That being said, there are some individual stocks that are on sale, and I think you need to look at it. You need to look at some of those big names in technology that are 15, 20, 30% from their highs. And they're on sale. And I don't think there's a lot that's changing that's going to change from them having a dominant position. I'd be looking at technology companies that have a dominant position, that have little competition. And if you can get them 20, 30% on sale, I see that as a buying opportunity. I do not think that we're at the end of the growth story in stocks. I think growth companies still have a ways to move. We're having a little bit of a pullback here because we've had such a raging bull higher, and because there's some other bigger concerns in the market. We have to look at what's happening with international. Emerging markets down over 15% on the year. International down over 10% on the year. U.S. markets are still flat on the year. We've retreated from highs, but still slightly positive on the year. So think about technology and think about some of those individual positions on a case-by-case basis. Story number 2, oil prices are tanking, down 27% since the high on October 3rd. Should investors be concerned? I do think it's something you have to look at. I wouldn't be running for the exits right now. I think some of what's happening with oil has to do with supply, has to do with having too much supply. It's not directly impacted necessarily by the economy or what's going to be happening with the economy, but it is another indicator. It is another thing to keep an eye on and keep looking at. Of concern to me is what's going on internationally. Of concern to me is some of the stuff that's happening with trade. I'm concerned about interest rates rising. I'm concerned about housing slowing. A little bit more concerned about housing even than I am about oil prices. But these things all combined could face some real strong headwinds for the economy. And then you have these businesses that increased their earnings last year very significantly. Now they've kind of priced in these, they've priced in the tax law changes and not expecting quite as much growth in the year ahead. All of these things combined are beginning to cause a little bit more concern about the fundamentals of this economy, something we have to continue to keep a watchful eye on. Story number 3, market stats. Between June 25th, 2004 and February 2nd, 2007, a period of more than 2.5 years, no bank failed in the United States requiring a bailout from the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Between February of 2007 and December of 2017, almost 11 years, 531 banks failed and required a bailout, equal to 49 per year or just short of 1 per week. So in the lead up to the 2008 recession, very few banks failed. Since the recession, 531 banks failed. The question is, what do you do with your safe money? It's a big question that I face these days. CD rates are higher than they've been in quite a while. You can get over 2% a year for a 3-year CD. So CDs have come back. Bonds have had a terrible year, down 4%. Past 4 years have had a real tough go at it. And I think the next couple years are going to be very tough. What do you do with your safe money? If you're going to have your money in a bank, make sure you understand the FDIC rules of coverage, because banks can go out of business, especially the smaller ones. And, well, really any bank could go out of business. So make sure you're aware of those FDIC insurance limits when you're looking at CDs, savings accounts, checking accounts. Make sure you're aware of it, because if we do have another financial recession or a big financial crisis, some of that money could be at risk. Consider diversifying into other low-risk assets. Now, there's very little that's going to be as low risk as a CD, but you could have money at different banks and different CDs. You could have your money in something that maybe takes a little bit more risk, but helps you diversify so it's not all with one bank. It's not all with one type of risk. Finding something to do with your safe money is very challenging. And if you want to talk more about some of our safe money strategies, I encourage you, go to our website and click on the button, schedule a consult. I'd be happy to sit down with you one-on-one and talk about some of the strategies that we're using to help conservative clients maximize their retirement income. And that's our money rundown for the week. And now for the best thing I saw this week. California is on fire. Some of the images and videos of people escaping the fires is breathtaking. Driving down a road that looks like hell, fire on both sides, lots of cars driving erratically trying to get out. It's a scary picture. Hearing about some of the heroes gives you a little hope. People pulled from their cars into a Walgreens by firefighters for their best chance to survive. Paradise, California, a city of almost 30,000, gone. 6,500 plus homes, 125,000 acres. What's so crazy about a tragedy like this is the speed. It's the unforeseen nature. It's going to bed thinking that you're miles away from danger, only to be woken by a neighbor pounding on your door telling you to evacuate. Only minutes to get out and to leave. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of this tragedy, and if you're in a position to help, please do. Tragedies like this, they cause me to reflect, to think about how quickly things can change. A life preparing for retirement can change with a health diagnosis. You or your spouse, sick or with an illness. Retirement can change if one of your parents gets sick, or one of your kids. All the more reason to make the most of every moment. As we're in this holiday season, be thankful. Make the most of your retirement, each good day that you have, because life can get challenging. We're not promised anything. Living the best retirement is about doing more of what you want, more of what brings you joy and happiness, more of what brings you relevance and purpose. Build a retirement plan so you don't have to worry about the numbers, so you don't have to worry about running out or having enough. Life has plenty of other things to worry about. 20, 30 years from now, you're going to wish you had more time. Make sure you made the most of each and every retirement year. Spend less time worrying about what stock you own and more time worrying if you fit in that family vacation to Zion National Park. Spend less time worrying about your bond allocation and more time worrying about hiring a chef and inviting over your friends for a dinner party. Spend less time worrying about politics and the market and more time worrying about if you made it to your grandkids' t-ball game. Make the most of every moment. And that's the best thing I saw this week. Next is our Scott Strategy segment. Earlier in the show, we talked about people wanting to bounce their last check. But what about those where legacy is important? What are the top strategies for talking with your kids about money and for dealing with your kids about money? How do you maximize and optimize your plan if you're concerned about leaving a legacy? Here are my top tips. Number one, don't give an unconditional free pass. If you want to give your kids money, great. But don't just write them a check for $400,000 unconditionally. One of the biggest challenges I face with people that have money and have assets is a desire to help their kids, a desire to help them get ahead. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is just giving an unconditional free pass, just writing big fat checks. It leads to entitlement. It leads to kids not understanding the value of money, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into earning those assets. Just giving an unconditional free pass, writing a bunch of checks, is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Tip number two, use your money to influence behavior and decisions while you're alive. You hold the purse strings. You've done well in your financial life. You've built significant assets. And the only reason there's going to be a nickel left over for your kids and grandkids is because you're not reckless in your spending. Isn't it important to teach your kids those same valuable lessons? Did you know that over 85% of inheritances are gone within 18 months? Think about that. 85% of inheritances gone within 18 months. Think about the care, the attention, the concern that you have about your retirement and about preserving your assets. And to think about your kids just squandering it or blowing it on a yacht, that can't make you feel very comfortable. To make sure that doesn't happen, use your money to influence behavior and decisions while you are alive. If you want to give a gift, maybe attach it to a goal. If your kids finish college with a certain GPA, they get X. If they decide to go to graduate school, they get Y. If they push for that job promotion, they get something else. Tie money to influencing behavior and decisions while you're alive, and get your kids involved in understanding how much work it took to raise and earn that money, and try to give them some of those same principles of frugality that maybe you learned over the years. 3, encourage kids to buy into your long-term vision. If you're thinking about long-term wealth, if you're thinking about generational wealth, you need to get your kids to buy into it. Because what you decide to do with your investments, what properties you may decide to hold on to or sell, what you do with your assets, why you make decisions about maybe eating at home instead of eating out so much, about being frugal with your money. It's part of the long-term family wealth story. And if you get them to buy into it, you get them to start being educated about money, you'll be that much more comfortable as they get established. Number 4, get some of their skin in the game. Get them to participate. Get some of their skin in the game. If you're going to help your son buy their first home, don't give them the down payment completely. Have them come to the table with something too. Make them save $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $30,000 for that down payment. A gift with no strings attached leads to entitlement, leads to a lack of appreciation. If they have some skin in the game, they'll appreciate it more. I understand why someone would want to help a kid or grandkid in Southern California buy a home. It's an expensive proposition. Real estate is out of control. If you have them have some skin in the game, whether it's buying a home, whether it's paying for college, they're going to be much better positioned to maintain your long-term wealth legacy. 5, encourage their money education and business ideas. Maybe you want to pay for them to go to a Tony Robbins seminar. Maybe you want to pay for them to go to a Susie Orman conference. Incentivize. Maybe you want to encourage them to watch all the episodes of Shark Tank. You need to provide some money education for your kids and grandkids because they're not getting it in school and they're not getting it in college. And the principles that have helped make you successful, it sometimes is difficult for them to pick that up. So can you incentivize and encourage their money education? Yeah, you'll pay for a family trip to Florida, but you want them to attend a 2-day conference on setting goals, on building assets, on entrepreneurship. Encourage their money education and business ideas. 6, provide an environment for testing ideas and brainstorming. You need to have conversations with your kids about what they want to do, what their vision is, what their dreams are, what their business ideas are. Have them flesh that out and really brainstorm with them. Maybe your assets can help them take that next level, can take that idea to the next level. Maybe it's a restaurant idea. Maybe it's a food concept. How can they think through some of those strategies and take their ideas and take their passion and turn it into a lifelong career? 7, take more family vacations and build family traditions. If you're thinking about long-term wealth and a wealth legacy, one of the best ways to make sure you have those conversations is to take the time to do it. It doesn't just happen in your home. It doesn't just happen around the dinner table. This is especially important with adult children. Adult children who have kids of their own, who have got their own careers, who get very busy. Taking those family vacations together can give you the time to start talking about family wealth, to talk about as a family what some of your priorities are for building long-term family wealth. And it's a good use of your own resources. Also, look at building family traditions. Maybe there's some interesting family traditions that you can come up with. Some of those don't have to cost you any money. Some of those may cost some money. And if you have some money to spend and you want to create a family legacy, focusing on those family vacations and family traditions is a good use of your resources. 8, manage assets in a long-term tax-advantaged way. If you're thinking about family wealth, this is very important. Understand that if you own property, this is of critical importance. Some families, as they transition, they'll start to give properties while they're alive. Often, that doesn't make sense under today's tax code. Under today's tax code, with you and your spouse, you can give your kids up to $20 million without paying any estate taxes. And one of the most important things about real estate is it's a great asset to give your kids because they get a step up in basis. Let me explain. Let's say you bought a house for $200,000, a rental property, and when you pass, it's worth $1 million. In Southern California, if either you or your spouse pass away, you get a step up in basis and can sell that $1 million property and pay no taxes at all. When your kids inherit it, let's say they inherit it for $1 million, they inherit it and they pay no taxes at all. They'll pay no capital gains tax and they'll pay no estate tax if you're under $20 million. So don't make a mistake of trying to liquidate it too early. It's best as a long-term asset. Individual stocks work the same way. Exchange-traded stocks work the same way. Let's say you own the S&P 500 index, or you own an individual stock and you've seen it appreciate significantly. You bought it for $100,000. Now it's worth $1 million when you pass. Now, by the way, this is stuff outside of your IRAs, outside of your 401ks. That stuff you got to pay taxes on. But if you took cash money, put $100,000 in a stock, it's worth $1 million when you pass, your kids are going to inherit it with a step up in basis. They won't pay any tax on the gain, and they won't pay any state tax if it's under $20 million. So make sure that you're thinking about the long-term tax advantages of some of your assets if you're thinking about building long-term family wealth. My last recommendation, include the grandkids. Don't just have your kids involved, but have your grandkids involved. Sometimes your kids might not be receptive to your vision about educating them about money, but your grandkids might. Your grandkids might use your money to influence behavior, to the decisions that they make. Use it to help educate them about money, about the way that you view money. And get your grandkids involved in thinking about long-term family wealth, about how to build the influence and the name of your family, and how to build the purpose that they're going to have in their life as they build out their career. Those are my top tips and strategies for people looking to build legacy. Legacy with their money, legacy with their kids, legacy with their wealth. Hope you found it informative. And if you want to talk more about it, of course, go to our website, click on Schedule a Consult. I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one and talk about strategies to maximize your overall wealth picture. And that's our Scott Strategy segment for the week. And now for our listener questions. If you want some of your questions answered during the show, go to our website, retireewo.com, and click on Submit a Question. We'll do our best to get your question answered during the show. Joining us today, as usual, is our producer, Angela Jugan. She's got some questions from some of our listeners. Angela, take it away.
Thanks so much, Scott. And our first question comes from Tito in Los Angeles, California. Hi, Scott. I want to help my daughter buy a home, and I'm thinking of withdrawing $400,000 from my IRAs. Are there better ways to do this? Thanks so much.
Tito, thank you so much for your question. I'm so glad that you sent me this question, hopefully before you've done it, because that could be an absolutely epic mistake. Pulling IRA money to help your kids get into a home at that level of income is going to be incredibly expensive from a tax perspective. If you want to help your kids get into a home, hopefully you've got some cash that you've put aside. Maybe you have some non-qualified assets, a trust account, a joint account, where to sell those positions, you'll pay capital gains tax instead of income. For you to pull $400,000 from your IRA, Tito, if you're working, if you have any other income, you're going to be in the highest tax bracket possible. You're going to be paying almost 40% in federal taxes. You're going to be paying 10% in California state taxes. For you to pull out $400,000 could cost you $200,000 in taxes. That's a huge issue. That's a huge problem. Now, one of the strategies, if you are set on using IRA money to help your daughter, pull it out more slowly over time. Maybe you pull out $100,000 a year over 4 years. Maybe you pull $50,000 a year over the next 8 years. Pull it more slowly over time and look very closely at what your tax liability is going to be. The way the tax code works in this country is the first dollar you make, you'll pay nothing in taxes. But the last dollar you make, you'll pay at the highest rate. And every single dollar you make could be taxed at a different rate. There's different brackets. So you have to be very conscious of what is your tax bracket and how much it's going to cost you to pull money from those IRAs. Tito, there may be other assets you want to look at your portfolio, maybe a smarter way to pull out that money to help your daughter.
And our next question comes from Eve in Temecula, California. I want to start talking to my kids about money, but I feel if they know our financial position, they won't be as motivated to make their own money. And I don't want to give any free handouts. Any advice?
Eve, thank you so much for the question. This is really a challenging question. A lot of people face it. How do you talk to your kids about money without them knowing too much, without them feeling entitled? How do you keep them motivated? Listen, this is an art. There is no perfect science to this, but I do have to say, by not saying anything, you're doing them a disservice. By not talking about it at all, you're doing them a disservice. I mean, what's going to happen if something happens to the two of you? They inherit all this money. How are they going to be expected to manage it well? How are they going to be expected to know what to do? I think the families that are building wealth for the long term, the best ones are talking about money. They're talking about money. And it can be an adjustment. It can be an adjustment for you to do this. And don't feel like you have to do it all at one time. You don't have to give them all the information all at once. You don't have to tell them what you make every year. You don't have to tell them what the home is worth or how much you have in your IRA or how much you have in cash. You don't have to disclose every single detail. But it's important to start having a conversation about money, about what motivates them, about what motivates you, about not just making money but saving money, not just about earning more but not spending quite as much or spending in a smart fashion. It's important to have a conversation about money. And I don't know what the exact answer for you is going to be, Eve. I don't know what the exact formula is going to be, but definitely start talking about something. If you're not comfortable talking about the details, talk about it conceptually. Start giving some small details and see if they can earn your trust. And start having the conversation some way, somehow, because if you don't, they won't be prepared in the long term. And you want to make sure your kids are making the best decisions for them long term. If they know they're going to inherit money down the road, maybe they're making a better long-term career decision instead of making a short-term career decision. They need to understand the whole family picture as well so that they can make some of the best decisions that they can for their own financial life. Hope that helps.
And our final question is Cindy in Diamond Bar, California. I feel like my kids have been given enough. I want to give most of my assets to charity. Do you have any issues with this?
Cindy, I don't see any issues at all. Give your money to whoever the heck you want to. You want to give it to your dog or cat? You can do that. You want to give it to charity? Feel free. You want to give it to your kids? Great. Give your money to whoever you want. Couple things. Number one, make sure you're clear in your trust, in your will about your instructions. Okay? And make sure you tell a couple people about your intentions. You don't want your kids to be blindsided. If you can tell your kids or give them an inkling, that would be very nice. But you don't want your kids to be blindsided. You don't want them to think they're going to be inheriting stuff that they're not. The more you can have clarity, the better. And if you want to give, most of the time, with people that are in this situation, often your kids are in a fine. Often your kids have done well for themselves and they don't need to inherit certain things. Also, I would encourage you, don't blindside your kids and give them some of the things that have meaning. If you don't want to give them all of the money, give them some of the things that have meaning. Maybe you've got a watch, maybe you have a car, some of your memorabilia, some of the things that they find personally valuable. Make sure that's given to them. Don't give that to a friend. Don't give that to a stranger. Give it to your kids because they're going to be the ones that are going to find it most valuable when you're gone. Also, think about what you're going to give to who. For people that are giving money to charity, I tell them to think really carefully about what they're giving to charity. Most people I meet with are not giving everything to charity. Maybe they give 10%, maybe 25%, maybe 50% to charity. And it's important to do some good planning around that, because the best assets to give to charity are different from the best assets to give your kids. Let's say you're going to give half your money to charity and you're going to give half your money to your kids. I would encourage you, give your IRAs, give your 401ks to the church or to the charity, because they are going to collect that money and not pay any taxes. Your kids, if they inherit the IRAs and 401ks, they got to pay an income tax bill. Leave your kids the home. Leave your kids the real estate. Leave your kids the stuff that are in the non-qualified or trust accounts, where they get those step up in basis, where they don't have to pay any income tax. They don't have to pay any estate tax when you do eventually pass. So instead of just doing a 50-50 split on everything, I'd rather have you give your qualified assets to the charity, give your non-qualified assets, real estate assets to the kids, and of course, the assets that have some sort of personal significance. Cindy, hope that helps. If you want some of your questions answered during the show, go to our website, retireewo.com, and click on Ask a Question. We'll make sure to get your question answered on a future show. And if you want to sit down one-on-one and talk about your financial situation, I'm happy to offer you a complimentary consultation to sit down with you and talk about your individual situation, your individual questions, and the best financial strategies to maximize your retirement. To do that, go to our website and click on Schedule a Consult. That's our show for the week. Go like us on Facebook to get our most up-to-date content. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. This is one of our last episodes of the season, so a quick shout out to the staff and the team that helped put this season together. Angela Jugan, our show producer and marketing director, has done a fantastic job from start to finish. Trevor Perez, our production assistant, has been so integral in all the video and all the content that you see online and editing the show every week. Quick shout out to Chelsea Plum and for all of her help on the show. Now, the best way to stay up to date on our content is go like us on Facebook or subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. This is going to be the end of our first season of Retire Eyes Wide Open. Stay connected with us to hear about our updated content. And stay tuned for 2019 for a new season of Retire Eyes Wide Open. Don't go to retirement with your eyes closed. Go into it with your eyes wide open. I'm your host, Scot Landborg, and we'll see you real soon.